You know, it's pretty amazing when you think about it, how a poem written over 700 years ago could hold a perfect roadmap for navigating the challenges we face in our own lives today. Well, we're about to unlock some of that timeless wisdom, all about integrity, loyalty, and the sheer courage it takes to speak the truth. And it's all hidden inside a few powerful lines written by a Korean poet while he was being sent into exile. And really, this whole explainer boils down to one powerful question. What is the true cost of honesty? For one 14th century poet and government official, the answer was, well, his career and his home. But as we're about to see, what he gained in return was something far, far more valuable. So, here's how we're going to break his story down. We'll explore it in 5 parts. First, we'll meet the poet himself. Then we'll break down his incredible poem line by line, unpack its powerful metaphors, connect it to some really deep history, and finally, we'll pull out the wisdom that we can all apply to our lives right now. Okay, so picture this. We're on a boat, on the Han River, sometime in the 14th century. On board is a scholar, an official, named Hwang Geun, and he is definitely not on a pleasure cruise. No, he's being sent into exile. He's been stripped of his position, all because he offered advice that the king just didn't want to hear. And it's in this moment of total crisis, feeling this mix of frustration, a sense of duty, even defiance, he picks up his brush and writes a single 4-line poem. I mean, that's it. And this one short verse perfectly captures the profound inner battle of someone who chose integrity over comfort. All right, let's dive into the first line. What's so interesting is that he doesn't start with his own personal feelings. Instead, he starts with this fundamental principle of leadership and humility that really, it sets the stage for everything else that's about to follow. In its original Hanja, which are the Chinese characters used in classical Korean, it looks like this. And there's such a beautiful logic and elegance to these characters, which was, a huge part of the literature back then. So let's break them down. Okay, let's get into it. The first character is Min, and in Korean it's pronounced Min. It means the people. Simple enough. Next up is Sui, pronounced Su, which means water. But here it's a metaphor for the people's collective power. That's followed by Gun, or Gun, meaning the ruler or the king. And finally, we have Ju, pronounced Ju, which means boat, and that's our metaphor for the ruler. So when you put all those pieces together, the line reads, "If you wish to know, the people's water carries the king's boat." It's such a clear and powerful statement, right? A ruler's power isn't God-given or absolute. It actually rests entirely on the support of the people. And this is what's just incredible. This idea was ancient and honestly pretty dangerous to say to a king. Hwang Geun was quoting the Chinese philosopher Sun Tzu, who wrote this about 1,500 years before our poet was even born. The full saying is even more pointed. Water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize it. So by starting his poem this way, he wasn't just writing poetry, he was giving a very courageous but respectful warning about why humility is so important. Okay, so let's see how he builds on this idea. The very next part of the poem explains what the job of an advisor is supposed to be. And it gives us a big hint about where things went so wrong for Hwang Geun. And in this next line, you can almost feel the poet's deep sense of personal failure and frustration. He feels like he didn't live up to his most important duty as an official. Let's break it down. First, we have Ige-won, pronounced Gay-won. This was the actual name of the government office that was responsible for giving frank, honest advice to the king. Then there's Muning, or meaning, which means failed to or could not. After that is Daeong, Jong, which means to present or to offer. And then, here it is, the key to the whole line, Yaksuk, pronounced Yaksuk, literally medicine and stone. So when you translate it, the line says, "In the Council of Remonstrance, I failed to offer the bitter medicine." What he's saying is that his advice, his attempt to help correct the king's path, it just wasn't accepted. And because of that, he feels like he failed at his job. And this concept of yaksok is just brilliant. It's this beautiful metaphor for advice that might be really hard to hear, bitter, just like medicine, but it's absolutely essential for your health and for you to get better. It's the ultimate expression of tough love. His advice was meant to heal, but it was rejected, and now he's the one paying the price. So here he is, at his lowest point, feeling like a total failure. But this is where the poet does something really remarkable. He looks to history, not to escape, but to find context and strength. And in doing so, he completely reframes the situation from one of shame to one of honor. This is the final line, and it contains such a powerful pivot. The entire tone shifts from regret to this kind of noble, almost defiant pride. All right, let's break this last one down. The first two characters are the key. Cheongsa, pronounced Jongsa in Korean. This is the name of a place in China, Cheongsha. Next is Gyeonjuk, which means to be exiled. Then we have Pusu, which means no need to. And the very last character, Su or Su, means to worry or to grieve. So, put it all together and we get being exiled to Changsha is nothing to worry about. Now, wait a minute. Our poet is on the Han River in Korea. He's not being sent to Changsha. So, what on earth does he mean? Well, he's making a really powerful historical comparison. And this is where it all just clicks into place. Our poet is connecting himself to a man named Jia Yi, who was this brilliant principled official in Han Dynasty China about 1,500 years earlier. Jia Yi was exiled to Changsha by his jealous rivals just for being too honest. And over time, he became this historical symbol of a righteous official who was punished for his integrity. So when Hwang Geun says, being exiled to Changsha is nothing to worry about, he's really saying, my exile is just like his. I'm part of a long, noble tradition of truth-tellers. This isn't a punishment to be ashamed of. It's a badge of honor. So let's tie this all together. What can we, living in a world so incredibly different from Hwang Geun's, learn from his journey? Well, the poem offers some really timeless lessons about finding peace by sticking to your principles, no matter what. The poet's journey basically gives us a clear 4-step guide. First, ground your principles in humility and respect for others, just like the king's boat rests on the people's water. Second, find the courage to offer that bitter medicine, to speak the truth with sincerity because you genuinely care. Third, accept the consequences with grace. The poet found honor, not shame, in his exile by connecting it to something bigger than himself. And finally, find pride in your purpose. That right there, that's the source of true contentment and inner peace. In the end, this poem is just a profound lesson in loyalty and love. It argues that real service, real loyalty, it isn't about telling people what they want to hear. It's about having the courage and the compassion to tell them what they need to hear, even if it comes at a great personal cost. And that is the ultimate expression of integrity. And that leaves us with a final question for you to think about, inspired by our 14th century poet. In your own life, in your work, in your relationships, what is the principle that you are so unwilling to compromise on that you're prepared to offer that bitter medicine no matter what the cost might be?